the bigger picture of things, this worldview chart that we're going to be having our test on next week is like a way to make a grid in your brain where you can make sense out of data when it comes to you. Sometimes when you learn a class, what you do is you learn all the details, and then at the end you learn the big picture. What I wanted to do this time when we teach worldview is I wanted to teach you the big picture chart, and then as we're learning things through the year, we will build more data onto our chart. So when you look at your syllabus, you'll realize that we're already up here in November. Can you believe that? We're at November the 6th, which means we have November 13th. Next week, we're going to be doing a discussion of a video called the Christian Manifesto. I warned you last week that you can go ahead and start watching that. That is your assignment. You need to watch that on your own time. Come to class ready to discuss it. Now, I'll warn you. The man is going to look antiquated and kind of like a cute granddad to you, okay? And you don't maybe know who Francis Schaeffer is, but he was a leader in kind of awakening the body of Christ to this need for worldview understanding. And this particular sermon is considered to be now a classic, out of which a lot of people were jarred out of complacency and he began to give this sermon in lots of locations. So you're going to see him giving. You know, when people say this is a sermon somebody gave, you all realize that a lot of times somebody has a sermon that they have taken across the nation. They've spoken in many different locations. So he spoke this Christian manifesto. It wasn't just at that event. He was speaking it during that period of time. Yes?
I was going to say, so far none of the links have worked on there. Because
yeah.
There were 3 videos you wanted us to watch last week. And
none of them worked. I believe this one will be fine. Just Google up Christian Manifesto. If the link is not right, which I checked this one, I'm pretty sure this one is, I know it's there, you know what I mean? So just Google it up on YouTube. If there's something not working here on this link, it's on there like 3 different ways.
So these 3 links that you have right here are all it?
Yes, because it splits it in segments. Oh. So if that link is not there, when I looked the last time I had multiple choice ways to watch it. So I'll check it in a little while before I leave here, but I'm confident it's on the web. You know what I mean? I'm confident you can find Christian Manifesto, YouTube, Francis Schaeffer, and it's going to come up. It may even be over on Vimeo also, because it's, like I say, I saw a lot of people had it posted in different ways.
Is the sermon called
Christian Manifesto? Okay? Just put Christian Manifesto. I'll check it in just a few minutes and make sure those links work. Now, when you get down to November 20th, notice that you have a 2-page reflection paper that is My Growth This Semester, type double-spaced. Please don't let that sneak up on you, because you also have your research paper. Those of you in research class, you're going to have the paper due at the same time. Now, you can write that right now. I'm okay if you go ahead and write that any time right now. Here's what I want in that 2-page paper. I want a proper theme paper. I want a paper that has basically a thesis statement. For those of you in research class, it's going to have a thesis statement. It's going to have good form to it. I don't want you just rambling. I want you to have some main points. You might want to think of it as thinking, if I was going to characterize my top 5 learnings from the class that have impacted my life, I think that's a helpful way to organize yourself. Otherwise, you'd say, this is a really good class, it's really helped me a lot, I think I'll be a better Christian. I mean, I don't want generalities. I want what happened to you and what were the points, that you feel like really helped you. So that should be a 2-page reflection paper, and I'm happy to take that at any point here. Okay? Now, when I say that we're going to start on our case study, we may not get that done in class. They may wait for that for the next semester. We're just going to have to see how well we do getting through some of this. So our last class, we may have to push off a little bit because we may have some more loose ends to tie up. But if not, I will start to give you that. Now, if you look over here to your unit tests, you have a unit test. First one was worth 100 points. Those all were recorded, correct? Do we have all those down there? Mm-hmm. Okay. The unit test 2 is worth 100 points. Your weekly homework, I was anticipating there would be 10 points per week. We've not done as much homework grading, so I don't know how many we'll have. We'll have to look at that when we get to the end. The articles evaluation was today, bringing in those articles for evaluation. Your reflection paper is worth 100 points. So you can see I was very generous. The 100 points that you've still got a test, and you've got another 100 points in your reflection paper still outstanding. You're not going to want to lose those points on the articles evaluation, so get those in if you didn't get those in today. Okay? Now, let's go back over to this chart that we've been working on, which is from the Summit Ministries Worldview Chart. And I want us to today, I'm going to be telling you what you need to learn out of here. And then I'm going to give you a little bit more on postmodernism. I asked you guys to learn a phrase last week, and I said it was an important phrase to learn. Who remembers what that phrase was about postmodernism?
New World Order.
That's one thing we were learning, but about postmodernism. Do you remember, Matthew?
Truth is only true if I choose to receive it.
Truth is only true if I choose to receive it. That's what postmodernism says. I 100% guarantee you right now I'm giving you the review for the test. So a wise person would be realizing, wow, she probably has the test sitting right up in front of her, and so she's giving me the data that I need to know. So, truth is only true if I choose to receive it is the postmodern view of truth. That's going to be something that you're going to have to be able to handle as a millennial young person. You're going to be interacting in your adult life and in your teen life with others who truly believe that. And so you're going to have to be able to understand that's their viewpoint. That when you say, I want to tell you the truth about something, they're thinking, that's true for you, but not for me. That's only true if I choose to agree with you. If I don't choose to agree with you, it's not true. Okay? It's a little different than pluralism that says that there's more than one truth. It actually has a feature to it that says that the truth can change from person to person. Not that we're all getting our own truth, but literally the concept of truth changes between you and you depending on who receives and who doesn't. And it's really a very confusing thing. That's why in our world today, in some ways, it feels a little chaotic if you're trying to get people organized in this generation, because everybody's inventing their own truth, and yet they won't really call it truth because it's only going to be true if they choose to receive it. See how that can be really confusing, right? And that's the world that you're going to be now leading in, unless we see a major change right now. That worldview is going to be, if you're in business, if you're in the marketplace, if you're at the hospital working, if you're, you know what I mean? You're going to have to understand, my coworkers really view the world this way. Are you getting that? So we're not just having an academic exercise here. We're training ourselves to live cross-cultural. There's a difference. What do I mean by cross-cultural?
In the world, but not of the world.
Okay, we're in the world, not of it. What do I mean by cross-cultural when we use that phrase?
All cultures can live in peace and not have to fight over anything.
Okay, that would be kind of cultural peace. If we all moved to China and we were going to be put either in the business world or on the mission field, those are probably the two major ways that people would be assigned to go to China, they will put you through a culture training school before you go there. Otherwise, when you get there, you'll be culture shocked and you won't know how to obey the parameters of how people think. So what we're doing in this class is I'm equipping you that you will not be culture shocked. When you encounter different people, that it's not like they're gonna come up and walk up and say, "Hi, I'm a humanist." You know, I mean, they're gonna walk up to you and identify themselves, and you're not gonna be saying, "Aha, I diagnose you," and this is gonna be unspoken. But you're going to get clues in how people are relating to you and how they're going about making decisions, how they're valuing things, and so we're learning all those different things. Now, on your chart, if you'll notice over here, this is something you're going to want to be able to know. How many worldviews, dominant worldviews, do we see listed here on our chart that we've been studying? 6. Can you name them? Who can name them? Okay, without looking.
Christianity, Islam, secular humanism, counterculture humanists, Marxism, Leninism, postmodernism.
Excellent. Okay? Now, is it within the realm of possibility that we'll need to adjust this chart over time?
Yes.
Well, of course. Okay, this chart was adjusted between the first edition of the book where we were using and this one. They added, they split over to a postmodernism needed to be added in because it became a dominant worldview. So this chart will continue, probably, unless, Jesus comes back or we just see a shifting in the world. But these major worldviews are in operation around the world. Now, if you look at your chart, I am not spending a great deal of detail on some of these disciplines. If you look over on the left side, you have the major disciplines. Where do you really notice these standing out?
Theology.
Okay, where do you really notice these words standing out? Where do we encounter these words? Philosophy, ethics, biology, psychology. We think of that as school, don't we? We think of it as college. We think of it as a university-level disciplines, the different departments. If you look over here on the left, there are 10 of them. I'm asking you right now to learn 5 of them with some good detail. The other 5 doesn't mean they're not valid, but they're rather detailed. And we've talked about them, but I'm not going to hold you as much accountable. So, just imagine if I handed you a chart and I said to you, you will need to be able to fill in this chart. Let me tell you which ones you would need to know. You would need to know theology, ethics, biology, sociology, and politics. Okay? If you just take your chart, you put an X right down the side. Look at what I do. Okay, just X them right over here on the side.
Can you read those 5
I'll read them off again. Theology, ethics, biology, sociology, and politics. Now, that doesn't mean you don't need to know anything else on the chart, but you absolutely will need to know those. You'll need to be able to compare them in the different worldviews. So, for instance, for theology, what is a secular humanist worldview for theology going to be?
Atheism.
Okay, now, do we have to memorize that? Or do you know that?
Well, I kind of know
See,
that.
we should be able to know enough about some of these that really it's not so much, oh my goodness, I got to learn the chart. You know, I mean, like, I've got to memorize it. Now, you can look at it and say, look, there's only 2 of them that are going to be theism. That would obviously be Christianity and Islam. But they're not going to be the same because in the Bible we have a Trinitarian view, and in Islam, ooh boy, they don't go with that at all. There is no God but Allah. Okay, so that's a Unitarian view. Do you see how I'm asking you to think through this because you're going to find that you know more of this than what you think. But I am going to hold you accountable for the words. Now, under biology, you do not need to know which form of evolution. You just need to know the word evolution. So, neo-Darwin, punctuated, cosmic, those are for another study, another day. Okay, you do need to know which ones are evolution and which ones are creation. Boy, that really shouldn't be too hard, should it?
Nope.
Because you just think about it logically. Well, obviously, if you don't think there's a God, then you're going to have another explanation of how this all got here, so you're going to be in some form over in evolution. Now, that's very helpful to you because you can pretty well know if you found someone who is not either Islam or they are truly a Christian worldview person, then you can pretty well guess that their view of how the world got here is going to be evolution. Okay? Now, can you have people who are hybrids of these different worldviews?
Yeah.
You most definitely can. Okay, so you need to remember we are reducing it to a chart, but people don't stay on charts too well. Okay, now, so the ones I'm holding you accountable are those particular ones. Let me see what other things I want to remind you about that. Now, in terms of the chart, I think this makes good sense. I'm holding you accountable to all of this going down. Christianity. Let me ask you to see if you can figure this out. What is a Christian worldview of ethics?
Right and wrong, but how
Moral
do you say
absolutes.
it? Oh,
Here's
yeah.
the phrase right here. Moral absolutes. Okay? I want you to memorize that. Let's try it. Look at your chart here. What's the Christian worldview of theology? Theism. Okay? What's our philosophy worldview? Supernaturalism. We believe in faith and reason. What's ethics? Moral absolutes. What's biology? Creationism. What's psychology?
Mind-body dualism.
Okay, does everybody know what that means? Mind-body dualism, and we believe in a fallen nature. Okay? Now, just got to tell you, when we're going down here and we're looking at this Christian worldview, we'll study more of this as we go into the next semester because we're going to be talking about how to build an appropriate understanding under our faith. But I want you to learn these words. Okay, when you learn these words, this will give you a way then to kind of recognize when somebody is telling you they're a Christian, but they don't believe that there is an Adam and Eve. Or they don't really believe in the concept of original sin. Then calculate for me what's going on here.
They're hybrid.
They're a hybrid?
Mm-hmm.
So now in your mind, you're going to have to say, okay, they're not falling into the understanding of psychology, so here's what's going to happen. They're going to fall into one of these other kinds of, probably, unless they're somebody from the Middle East or somebody who converted to Islam, they're going to fall into one of these humanism type of views, probably. So now you're listening. Wonder what they do think about psychology. Okay? Wonder what they do think. For instance, let me show you a real interesting one that just happened in the news. we were talking about in the mom's class today. Did you know there was another tragic suicide case over in Carterville? 8th grader. Can you imagine? This is the 3rd student, and they had a teacher about 2 years ago. Yeah.
Carterville, like right here?
Yeah. In the last, we're trying to think, within the last 2 years, there's been 3 suicides and a teacher who committed suicide. So 4 suicides over there. That's horrible.
Wait, just in the school, you mean?
3 in the Carterville school district.
Oh.
Okay? Either the high school or the junior high. This one was an 8th grader. I think the other 2 had been high schoolers. So the city over there is just really upset. I mean, the churches, really upset. So, now you've got an issue now that's out in front of us called suicide. What they'll do is that they will bring in a team of counselors to the schools because they got a lot of students that are very upset, and of course that's an appropriate thing. You want to help people when they're upset. But here's the interesting thing. Those counselors will come into the school with a worldview. Okay? Right? Everybody has one. So now the counselors are going to come in to try to help the students to get healed up from this traumatic thing that their classmate just committed suicide. They're going to come in with a worldview. Now, do you think they're going to come in with a mind-body dualism, fallen nature view of suicide when they come in? Well, here's what we probably know. Even if they personally have that worldview, they're probably not going to be able to operate in that worldview when they're coming into the school system because they're not going to be coming in saying, wow, the force of sin overtook this young man. Nobody's going to say that. That's ridiculous, right? So they're going to have to explain the fact, I don't know what happened with the young man. He probably had some depression issues, but I don't know. But let me ask you, when we think about the issue of suicide, for the believer, is that an appropriate option for a Christian to do? Is suicide an appropriate option? Okay, well, what would we call it then? If you committed suicide, what do we call it? See, everybody's, oh no, what do we call it? What do we call it? What do we call it?
Sin?
Sin. Okay, now how else is this going to play if you go over there to the high school and say, wow, we had a sin problem over here, the guy committed suicide. The whole place would just look at you and say, you cruel, heartless person. How could you say that? Now, here's the challenge with that. See, we have a complex issue going on in a community. We have a tragedy. This young man was a child. He was just a kid. He made a horrible mistake. His parents are devastated. Who wants to pour any more pain onto their pain? It's horrible. But somehow, when you sort it all out, we have to understand what happened here. Was he overtaken by an impulse? Maybe. Was he unwise? Certainly. Were there other options? Absolutely. Right? Otherwise we've got to build an understanding. But you see, what we're doing right now is we're probably going to have people coming in. Which worldview do you think is going to be the dominant? Because they're probably, I haven't checked, but I doubt they're going to bring the pastors in to the school. Now they might, because Carterville is they certainly wouldn't be doing that in Cardinal. They would not. We couldn't do that in Cardinal. It's Carterville. They might have some pastors on tap to pray for the students. Now I can tell you, in other generations, they would not have pulled in counselors. They would have pulled in pastors. Okay, under generations in America. My grandfather, who was a Methodist pastor, used to tell me stories of when the school would call him up to come on down and help out at the school. It's just like a foreign concept to us. They'd have discipline problems, they'd have things going up, and they'd say, hey, we need some help down here, Pastor Robinson, can you come on down? And he'd just get in his car and drive on down there to help him at the school. Because there was a biblical respect for his viewpoint. Now we're not going to call in the pastors when we have a suicide. Well, you're looking at it and saying, wow, if you wouldn't call them in when somebody died, when would you call them in? Bingo, right? Because the worldview system is not going to be a Christian worldview system. It's going to be under one of these other categories. So let's say, and I want to look this up. Would somebody look up, we've got that website. Does anybody have their electronics here so you can help me with this? We're over here at our website that we've been using. You know what I'm talking about? The worldview, what's it called? Yeah, open that up for me. I want somebody to read for me, get ready to read here while I'm talking. Under psychology of postmodernism, I want to read this phrase called socially constructed selves. Socially constructed selves. I want to read that viewpoint because, we're probably going to see quite a bit of, look under psychology. For secular humanism, the view is monism, which was self-actualization. Okay, self-actualization is Huth's theory. Remember I taught you this one? Abraham, better know it for the test. I'm quizzing you right now. Remember Abraham Maslow? Remember the pyramid I drew for you? Okay, at the top of his pyramid was this phrase what? Self-actualization. Need to know that chart. Okay? Need to know that chart. Go back and review it. But the top of his pyramid was the concept of self-actualization. So if somebody has a problem in their life and you have a psychology philosophy built on the principle of self-actualization, you're going to be looking for how to solve the problem through the lens of where was this guy on his chart? Why did he kill himself? You see what I mean? That's what you're going to be looking for. You're going to be looking. So if you bring in, do you have somebody have that for me now? Okay, would somebody read to me? Because the postmodern view of psychology says what? Read it for us, would you? Socially constructed selves.
Humanist psychology, like all aspects of the secular humanist worldview, is strongly influenced by their assumptions about theology, philosophy, and biology. Leading secular humanist psychologists begin with the assumption that a personal God is a myth, and that we are all simply products of spontaneous iteration and billions of years of evolution. Naturalistic philosophy fits hand in hand with these two first assumptions.
Okay, socially constructed selves. Okay, so we're going to solve psychology problems. Is there something else that tells us that?
That was the introduction.
Is that all you got on that one? Okay. Our socially constructed selves, we made ourselves. We'll solve our problems ourselves because we made ourselves. Do you see what I mean? So a view for postmodernism is not going to say, where's God in the middle of this suicide? We're going to be saying, what did the people in the group do that made this kid kill himself? Okay, so immediately everybody's going to be saying, where was the bullying, right? Where were the things going on? Because we're going to solve the problem that we're socially constructed. We're all interacting with one another, visualizing world peace together, right? We're all here, and we're all a product of this social construct. So now we have a problem. A young man is dead. Okay, it's a terrible tragedy. You're going to have some people who are going to be saying, where's God in this? But you're going to have a lot of other people who are going to say, where did the school system fail? Where did the other students fail? What kind of rules do we need to put in here about bullying? Now, which viewpoint is going to prevail? Probably depends on which moment you're talking to people, right? If they're talking about the whole situation down at the church, then hopefully the pastors in that community are going to be talking about the sin of suicide. Boy, they may have to close their doors and then pray that everybody doesn't throw them out, because that doesn't even feel very comfortable for me to say in this room. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see there's a problem here? I mean, I can say that. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm on video. What's going to happen? I just said suicide's a sin. But do you see what happens if we begin to move off of that worldview? We're going to have to explain problems another way. Did you guys follow the study? Did anybody pick as one of their articles today the Brittany Maynard story of assisted suicide? Anybody pick that as one of the articles this week?
I read the article, but I didn't pick it.
You didn't pick it? Okay, what happened with her?
She found out she had cancer and that she was going to have to go through all these painful things. Then she would only have 6 months to live or something, so she traveled around the world and then set a date where she was going to have the doctor give her this poison to die, and so she set it up where she could die with all her friends around her, and people are now all debating on whether it should be legal to do that or what.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a very fascinating, the first time I read the article, she's a real sweet girl. I mean, there's only 29, so that's the age of, some of my kids, and my heart's pulling, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, well, now, that's what we do with dogs. When they're really sick, we say
You did.
Put them down.
there you go, we would do what?
Put them down.
We put them down. Okay, so really, see, if over here, if it says right here that we evolved, then she's just simply a little higher on the evolution but she's in charge. You see what's going on here? Do you see what's going on? She's got, all these decisions are going through your mind. Does she have a right to be in charge of her death? Okay, under postmodernism, does she have a right to be in charge of her death?
Yeah.
Okay, under postmodernism. How about under Islam?
I don't think so.
Well, they have like those
Interesting.
suicide
Unless
bombers.
Interesting.
unless you say that.
Because now the whole issue of suicide through a Islamic worldview, then the person would say, oh, well, what's the cause? Because, you know, if I'm on jihad, I might be good. Okay? So, again, you see why these issues, this is really where we're at. So now as a nation, Catholic Church issued a strong statement. It was through their ethics committee, board, I don't know what they have, some sort of ethics group. And they issued a strong statement saying, no, this is not correct, that God is the one who's in charge of the giver of life, and he brings the end of life. And so for a human being to go in here and do this, by very nature, we don't, we're sad she's suffering, we're sad about all these things. See, our feelings can't determine our worldview. You see what I mean? But right now, unless you elevate, and you go over here, let's go to postmodernism again, because we got through a lot of this last week, but I want you to look at these words. One that we didn't look at too much is under sociology. Sexual egalitarianism is the sociology view of postmodernism. What on earth is sexual egalitarianism? Can anybody describe that for us? You got your little thing out there? What is sexual egalitarianism? Take the words apart. What do you think it might mean?
The definition.
Yeah, but just to see if we can just take it apart. Anytime you see hard, kind of jargonized words, always say to yourself, what can I just kind of figure out? So before you tell us, let's think about it. Sexual egalitarianism. Okay, well, how can you take those apart? What do you think that might mean?
Does it mean something about man and woman being equal?
Very close. Very close. Okay? Egalitarian is another phrase that says equal. It's kind of a fancier way of saying equal. So sexual egalitarian, but notice it doesn't just say sexual egalitarian. It puts the word ism on the end. What happens if you make something into an ism?
It's a belief.
It's a belief system. Okay, when you call it an ism, now you've got a system